What is going on? It's Alex coming back at you with another video, and today we are going to be reviewing the brand new ESPN Jordan Reed mock draft. Let's get right into this. If you are new, feel free to like, comment, subscribe. Do that fun YouTube jazz. We are on the way to 10K by the end of the year, so let's make that happen. Let's have some fun here. Let's jump right into this. It's been a while since I've reviewed an ESPN mock draft, and got a lot of respect here for our beloved Jordan, because he is a very good analyst from TDN. Used to do his mock drafts over there. Let's get right into this. So starting out with the number 1 overall pick, the Bears go Caleb Williams still. So it's intriguing. I think that based on the fact this is the current record, the Bears have the number 3 overall pick. It still is most likely going to be Caleb Williams. It's fun to play around with the idea that Caleb Williams does not go to the Bears, but that's more so fatigue than just pure analysis. He's still a phenomenal player. Yes, the numbers are significantly worse versus top 25 teams. Like, that's 100% true. Is that something to be worried about? It's something to be concerned about. I wouldn't say worried. Now, you look at how he plays, because again, stats are a representation of the whole gamut. It's not just how you played, it's how everything ended up working out. It's how the defense played, how your other receivers played, your line played, etc. Now, it is primarily a quarterback stat. However, when you look at Caleb statistically, not necessarily well worth that number 1 overall selection based on his performance over the past couple weeks. However, when you watch the games, you do see him struggle from time to time, like especially versus Notre Dame. There's some boneheaded mistakes in there. But one, this guy has been doing some unbelievable throws consistently. Guys make boneheaded mistakes. Question is, will he continue to make boneheaded mistakes? I didn't see him continuously make those boneheaded mistakes week after week after week. So, even if he didn't have a stellar performance this past week, I still think that the way he played was translatable to the NFL. He still had some good plays in there. And at the end of the day, Caleb still has his running ability as well to make up for when his passing doesn't work. Cough, cough, Justin Fields. But Caleb just has a little bit more rhythm when it comes to the mental processing of the quick game. He drops back faster. He makes quicker decisions. Now, the jury is still out on Justin Fields, put perfectly there by Jordan. But if you have the number 3 overall selection, which again, this is assuming that the current draft order is the final draft order, which it won't be. But again, assuming that the Bears have the number 3 pick, because this is from Carolina, you still have not found your answer. So it is what it is. Chicago Bears going Caleb Williams. We'll have to see what the issues are with Caleb wanting ownership of a franchise. I don't get all the extra bullshit. I understand, again, you're in this for the money, you're in this for yourself, and, you bring the team along with it, because, again, this is a selfish world, unfortunately. The organizations are acting in their self-interest, so it's not out of left field for a player to act in their own self-interest as well, and hopefully both of those do align. But Caleb seems to be getting a little greedy. I'm just going to be honest. I don't think he's warranted the discussion of ownership of a franchise he's in. I got to put it like that. It's weird, but that's a topic for another day. The Cardinals going Marvin Harrison Jr. Obviously, I love the fit. As long as Michael Wilson stays healthy, I don't think they need to go after this. However, I'm not going to complain about it. I traded out in my most recent mock draft this week. However, that's just, again, kind of more so draft fatigue, trying some new possibilities, because, again, we all know that every single pick is not going to go according to plan. So being able to essentially recycle the same thing over and over again doesn't really seem to make sense. It's fun to play with new ideas, because that's exactly what happens in the NFL draft. There's a whole bunch of new things that happen that you don't really see coming from a mile away. Broncos going Drake May. I think it's a solid spot for Drake May. It just depends on the weapons that they have there. It depends if Garrett Bowles is there. If they sell off the whole team, I don't like it for Drake. I would love to see him in a situation where he has some really big playmakers. He doesn't necessarily have to be carried by his receivers whatsoever, but we're seeing guys like Tez Walker that when the guys can make big plays, that's when Drake May is at his best. Now, he's not going to shank a 50-yard ball down the field because he's going to put it on the money. So weird, because sometimes there'll be a 5-yard out route that he just doesn't throw to the proper place. But again, I'm still evaluating quarterbacks through a new lens every year, and as everybody should. You should always take what you learned as successes and failures in years prior and develop your scouting. For me, quarterbacks continuously is one of those positions where I'm continuing to revamp. Drake May is somebody who I've continued to get more in favor of, even though this past week I think he had 50% in a loss, 50% completion percentage in a loss to Virginia. I'm not going to get on his ass too much about that. Again, I looked at like how it was statistically broken down, and Drake May has had many better performances. He should have probably had a more consistent performance against Virginia, but he was not. Like, he was not the main reason they lost. So I'm not going to put that loss on Drake May. Regardless, I think that in the right situation, Drake May has full clearance to be the QB1 of the class. It just depends on what that situation is. And I want him to go down, slide. Learn how to slide, my friend. You are not that big of a dude. And you are lowering your shoulder when it's pretty obvious there's not too much going on up here in terms of mass. And that doesn't even matter. Your shoulder joint doesn't give a shit if you're 300 pounds or if you're 100 pounds. It just, if it's out, right? So I'm praying to God that he has a little bit better maintenance of his overall body. Because, again, I hate seeing careers ended because people can't stay healthy. Like, we're even seeing with Anthony Richardson, his career's far from over. Like, let's clear the air on that one. But it just sucks that we can't watch more of him because he's hurt. And it's not Anthony's fault entirely. Freak accidents do happen, but there are ways of mitigating that risk, i.e. sliding. Sometimes when you get the first down, it's okay to not get the extra 2 yards and save yourself the hit. Regardless, at number 4, the Giants go Olu Fashanu. I just don't think he's going to translate well to the right tackle spot. There's this gut feeling after letting up 4 pressures that JT Tuimoloau this past week. He's shown that he needs a lot of area to develop and grow. And now, I could be totally wrong, but when I see somebody who is not fully polished at the left tackle spot, I get very scared about moving them to the right tackle spot, especially when they're coming off their worst week. I still think if you do evaluate Olu, and maybe, who knows, maybe the right tackle gets injured one game this year, and who says, like, maybe Penn State has a really good left tackle that's behind Olu that can step up and say, hey, Olu, we have some NFL teams that want to see you at right tackle. You want to take some reps there? That'd be awesome, right? And like, let's just say he does phenomenally. This is a great pick, right? This is a great pick. But for me, it feels the same way as Evan Neal's selection, where I saw him developing as a right tackle in the year prior, but he really took his step up to be NFL caliber as a left tackle. So I'm just scared because both of them, Evan Neal and Olu, seem to be on a similar track. Hyper athletic dudes, tons of potential, but needs a lot more polishing if they're going to move to a new spot. And I would hate for Giants fans and Olu Fashanu and Evan Neal to have to deal with that. Again, I know it's number 4 overall, and Olu is well worth that pick because he is a fantastic tackle if he ends up performing and developing properly. However, I just had to put it out there. If you want to go a tackle, I'm just going to continue pounding on my boy Talise Fuaga, right tackle out of Oregon State, to be the man for the job. At pick number 5, the Bears go Dallas Turner. I'm not going to shame it whatsoever, even though the Bears have been, for some reason, really solid defensively. I think they're the number 1 run defense, or they're definitely up there, and they've been doing just a really solid job overall. Can still get more pressure, and Dallas Turner is a hyper versatile edge rusher. I'm very excited to see how it all turns out for the Bears in the first. But next, we have the Commanders going Joe Alt out of Notre Dame. Offensive line is a position I would go after for the Commanders. If they're sitting there at 6th overall, it's worth taking. So, yeah, by the way, the Bears, I guess this is not the current draft order. This is the Super Bowl odds. That's my bad for the oversight. But still, if the Bears have the number 5 overall pick, you're still going to be going after a quarterback. But Joe Alt to the Commanders is a very solid move. At pick number 7, we got the Patriots going Brock Bowers. So Brock Bowers is just a super special talent. Again, he's listed as a weapon in my on my board below my face. He's just different. That's all I could say. He's a different style of player. One of the best that I've ever seen at the tight end position. One of the best blockers I've ever seen at the tight end position. So I think he'd be a massive addition to New England. If he's there on the board for them, apart from an offensive tackle, I cannot see them, or a really good quarterback for that matter, I cannot see them passing on him. He is really that spectacular. Then we got the Raiders going Kool-Aid McKinstry, A++ move. I'm a big fan of going after a DB for the Raiders. Even if the quarterbacks are on the board, this team's not ready for one quarterback drop in. Personally, I hate to say this to Raiders fans, I'd tank for a couple of years and just essentially do what the Browns did, even though the Browns didn't get the quarterback position necessarily right. But, they still acquired tons of draft capital. They had tons of young dudes and developed dudes by the time that they had a full roster, and they're just ready to make a pounce. And fortunately, they don't necessarily have the final piece, but we can tip the cap that they at least tried to do it. And that's the way that y'all should do it. Rebuild that roster, get guys like Kool-Aid who will be true leaders in that secondary. And then when you're ready, and you're pretty close to being ready, drop the QB in. You got Green Bay Packers here going J.C. Latham, right tackle out of Alabama. I would be looking for a left tackle here unless you want to move the right tackle and Zach Tom to left tackle for the long run. We'll see about that. I don't think J.C. Latham is that good. Well, he's a good player, but for me, I have issues with both him and actually Tyler Guyton as well. They both give up early on a lot of reps. Now, again, I'm not going to make a personal claim here that they are lazy people. Like let's get that out of the window. But in terms of the play on the field, that's something I don't accept. Personally, I wouldn't draft J.C. Latham or Tyler Guyton at this point. The more I watch them, the more I'm like, Does that mean they're going to fail in the NFL? Absolutely not. But for me, my values pertain to play through the whistle, right? And I don't see that with JC. I don't see that with Tyler Guyton. That's a conversation for another day. I'll make a tackles video again where I re-break down the tackle class on it. But the talent-wise, JC Latham's through the roof. Like, he is a very good tackle. Just for me, value-wise, I wouldn't necessarily be down for that. Regardless, I just think that a left tackle would be a better position, or else go safety/defensive back. Not many needs for this team. It's a minor nitpick. It's still a solid player. Then you got the Titans going Nate Wiggins. I'm a little bit lower on Wiggins than a top 10 selection here. I'm going to see a little bit more all 22 of Nate Wiggins before I finalize my opinion, of course. My opinion is never finalized until the last drop of tape is watched. Like, I'm always open to changing my opinion until draft day. I think that's I have some questionable tweets out there, and today one of them got exposed about CJ Stroud. Was not a big fan of him coming into last year's draft cycle. And there were a lot of throws that were off target to Olave and Wilson. And you know what? He improved. He kept getting better. And eventually he became my number 10. He became my number 9 overall player in the class. Like, I'm willing to admit when I'm wrong or when players have developed, i.e. Chop Robinson, JT Tuimoloau. I raise players up my board because at the time I'm watching them, I say what they are. And the best thing in the world, in fact, is when I'm not a huge fan of a player and then they become someone I love. So that's something that I really do pride myself on, is the fact that I really don't care what my original opinion was. I care about who they are. And with Nate Wiggins, I could totally see my opinion totally changing, especially in the thinner corner class, for him being worth a top 15 pick. Because I have seen quite a few really good plays from him, but I want to see a little bit more all 22. Titans getting a corner is not a bad idea whatsoever. And again, I'm not really going to complain about this at all. It's a good pick. I'm not there mentally yet with Nate Wiggins. Then we got the Colts going Keon Coleman out of Florida State. It just depends if they have Michael Pittman Jr. going to be staying around. It really does. If he does, then it kind of fills that Coleman role, the really sure hands and, the good frame, the X-build receiver. So for me, I think that might be a little overlap if they end up bringing back Michael Pittman. If they don't, that's a great pick. It's a great pick for a role that we know succeeds in this offense. Then we got the Buccaneers going Jared Verse. Honestly, I'm totally down for this idea. It's a really quality player at a position of high value with, not necessarily the creme de la creme that is there. Shaq Barrett's getting old, right? And Joe Tryon-Shoyinka is a very solid edge too. But in the long run, edge rushers are generally what can dictate whether an offensive play is going to go well or not, because they're going to blow up the pass, they're going to blow up the pocket, or else they're going to blow up something else that's going on. So I love Jared Verse. I think this is an excellent value selection, and I'm all for it. Pick number 13, we got the Bengals going Rome Odunze. I think he could actually work with T. Higgins going out. I think if they end up bringing back Tyler Boyd and releasing T. Higgins. I think Rome could work here. I'm not over the moon yet on Rome. I'm continuing to see some more all 22, and my opinion is obviously changing a little bit here and there, but I'm still not fully sold on him as a first round guy. And I'm going to put him in the first because I blend my board with realism. But just sometimes I don't like a player as much as other people do. Now, does that mean I'm right? No. I mean, I'm more than happy to be wrong. Players I don't like, I am actually excited for when I get proven wrong. I don't care if I'm on old takes exposed. Like, good football is so much better than being correct. I'm just going to be honest right there. Rome Odunze could end up being a really good wide receiver. And again, I need to see more tape on him. I do. Like, there's just all 22 tapes what I use for wide receivers, DBs, and quarterbacks. And for me, I have my doubts here and there. But he's still a very good receiver. He fits that role perfectly. It's a good pick. Amarius Mims for the Jets. I make this pick myself. So, I don't need to really make much of a comment on that. Tackle's one of the best needs. And Amarius Mims is one of the best players in the class. Malik Neighbors, I've actually made this pick before for the Saints. It's a really good selection. He is a complement to what they have there. You kind of want that after the catch guy. You have the pure separator by route running, essentially, with Michael Thomas is a route runner too, but Michael Thomas is more of a possession, big body guy. But then you also have Chris Olave, if he's not going 70 and a 35, at least he can go that speed. Jokes aside, he is a top tier receiver, and then adding Malik Neighbors, that is kind of just that nice little cherry on top. I do think Rashid Shaheed could essentially do 70%, if not 80% Malik Neighbors' work. The question is, do you think that extra 20% or 30% is worth spending that first round pick on? Some people do. I'm not necessarily there, but I have been in the past. Cardinals going Jadon Newton is an A++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++++ Chargers going Kalen King. Another great move. So bottom line, yeah, love both these picks. Both of them, I would make them in the top 10. So if they're here out of the top 10, obviously I'm going to make them too. I'm not a fan of Patrick Paul. I just got to be honest. I continue rewatching more games of Patrick Paul, and I just don't really see it. I think he's a liability in the run game. I know he's been phenomenal in terms of his PFF pass blocking grade. Like, bro has almost like a 98 pass blocking grade, and power to him, right? Again, this is where, statistics don't always line up with what you see. I don't believe in him as a pure NFL tackle. I have him as a 5th round to 6th round grade at best. And that was before I had him as a UDFA. So I do think he improved, which is a good sign. But I just don't really think that he's that good. I just don't. I just really don't. And again, that's my personal opinion. I do feel like I trust my eyes the most with offensive linemen. And the fact is, there's more tape to be watched. I'm going to continue watching more Patrick Paul because I want to believe in him like this. I want to see a tackle that is worth a top 20 pick. I don't yet. But I do think the Rams could go off after offensive tackle. So I don't think that's a bad move if I'm on the same mental process as a Mr. Reed. Now we have the Falcons going Braylon Trice. It's an A+ move. He's going to be stepping in right there for Bud Dupree's position that they signed in the offseason. So they have a need, and they're going to fill it. Now we got the Vikings going Leatu Latu. I do think Danielle Hunter actually could be gone as of the trade deadline. This is a good pick too. If the Vikings don't go QB, edge rusher and corner are the positions I'd really want to go after. So big fan of that. You got the Steelers going Cooper DeJean. I am so for this. My Lord. And we get a returner too, so we got no Gunnar Olszewski BS going on. Man, I'd be such a huge fan. I think of him as a top 32 player easily in the class as a safety. I just don't really trust him as a pure boundary corner. But at the same time, we need a safety, and our safeties play a major role in our defense. So DeJean, Minka, and Joey, that just makes me happy. Then we got the Seahawks going Brandon Dorless here. He's going to be interior. I would personally go after, Leonard Taylor, Chris Jenkins, just a pure ideal. But Brandon Dorless is still a quality dude. I'd prefer to go after him in the 2nd round. I don't think he's 1st round quality. But he's a good player. He's a good player nonetheless. But just, missed tackles here and there. And I just think that his frame is not necessarily going to fit the way I'd want him to. But again, this is a solid pick. I'm just being nitpicky here. Texans then going Emeka Egbuka. People get mad when I take this, but hey, you know what? Is what it is. I would love to pair Mecca back up with CJ. Now we got the Jacksonville Jaguars going Chop Robinson. I mean, again, we all knew Trevon was going to be a longer term project. Like, is he a top 5 edge rusher right now? No. Does that mean that the number 1 pick was a bust? No. Again, I was thinking Trevon Walker, I said, wait 3 years, right? And it's not all out. Rashawn Gary took a multiple years to develop into the superstar that he is. It takes some guys time. I don't think that's a reason to talk about, like, again, Jordan's not saying that Trevon's not developing. It's just not as fast as like a pure edge one by the time Josh Allen is up for a contract, right? So I think Chop Robinson's excellent value, but it just depends. It just depends. I think he needs a real mentor, and if Josh Allen isn't there, I'm getting a little bit worried. Now we got the Detroit Lions going JT Tuimoloau. Intriguing. Getting Ohio State player to play across from a Michigan edge rusher. I don't think edge rusher is a bad position to go after for the Lions, but I mean, I'm not going to shame JT Tuimoloau at this point in the draft. It was back when he was like a top 3 selection. That's when I used to get all like nitty gritty about it. I've ended up becoming a bigger fan of JT over the years. So happy for him. I think that the Lions could use a corner one. They can use a wide receiver one. And there's still some really good players on the board. You could go right guard too, but that's something that's proven to be. Then you could push down the board a little bit. But you know, interior defensive line, you got Chris Jenkins, so you could actually go back to Michigan, and then you could also go with Leonard Taylor. Regardless, JT Tuimoloau is not a bad selection by any stretch. Again, just more of a nitpick on where I would personally go. Bills then going Cameron Kinchens. I think this is an excellent selection. I'm not gonna defend against this pick. Cameron Kinchens is a top tier safety. I'd prefer Cooper DeJean if he were on the board, but my Steelers got to snag him, so suck on that, Buffalo. But Cameron Kinchens is a beast. He is a beast. I like him a lot. You got Kingsley Suamataia here out of BYU for the Cowboys. I made this pick myself. However, I actually just did a re-evaluation of Kingsley, and I don't think he's going to make it in the NFL as a left tackle. He has a lot of really, really desirable traits. Very athletic. He has some very good mechanics in there, but he hasn't put it together. And if you don't put it together at the BYU level, I am a little bit scared of you putting it together at the NFL level at left tackle. I think he had it all together at right tackle, and he lost 15 pounds, so he's a different body type. He's going to a different position. You have to move a different way. You have to strike a different way. And I just don't think, even though statistically he's doing better and better, I don't think that he's ready over Tyler Smith to start left tackle for the Cowboys. I'd honestly prefer to go Troy Fautanu, the left tackle out of Washington, and kick him to left guard and have him and Tyler Smith do their position swaps, because I think Tyler Smith should be the left tackle for the future. But again, I was a Tyler Smith guy, so it is what it is. Ravens going Chris Jenkins is going to be a great pick. So yeah, I think they could use some extra meat on the interior. That and Travis Jones would be pretty damn awesome. Excited to see, because he's a great run stuffer too. And, you know, being able to stop the run in the AFC North is kind of a good way to win. You got the Dolphins going Tyler Guyton here. I made this pick myself. I already talked about it earlier. Have some concerns of him giving up early on reps. I don't think he has a poor motor. I just don't know why they don't play through the whistle. I don't. Because I see him really try his best. He gets excited about plays. Like, he gets a first down. You see him pumping his fist and stuff. Like, I like that. It doesn't look like he's just playing to play the game. Like, he looks like he enjoys it. But when you don't have the ability to block through the whistle, and I'm not saying he can't, he just doesn't. It bothers me. It bothers me. But for the Dolphins, I don't think it's a bad selection by any stretch. If they end up letting Austin Jackson go, you know, we'll see about that. Regardless, we can move on to Philadelphia going Jordan Morgan. I don't get this pick. I guess that they're talking about flexibility to play all over the line because he's played right tackle before. I get that. If Lane wants to stay one more year, you can develop Jordan as a top tier right tackle. I just don't know if I'm all for it. I just don't. You have some, well, I guess most of the edge rushers are gone. But you still got some corners like Denzel Burke on the board to continue developing. Looking at the guys who I'm a big fan of, do we have anybody? Johnny Wilson, but again, that's one of my guys. Talise Fuaga, obvious. I mean, do I need to mention that? No. But that would be obviously my selection. I feel like the Eagles will eventually snag him if he doesn't continue climbing up boards the way he should. Then safety as well, potentially with Kalen Bullock. Like, there's a lot of good positions to go. Jordan Morgan's not a bad position or not a bad player to go with. I just feel like there's some good, like, there's a lot of good plays in Jordan Morgan, but he's a little too inconsistent for me. He has a early third round grade. But again, if you want to sit him, develop him for a year, I get it. And then we got the Niners going Kamari Lassiter, high upside, high octane corner out of Georgia. I'm fine with this. Again, this team doesn't really, they could have like pretty much a pair of hot dog buns for corners and they'll still perform really well. So at least they're going and just trying to swing for the fences with this. You got Ward there, who's a beast. And that's going to be a really good mentor for someone like Lassiter. And then ending this off, we got Troy Franklin. I love this pick. I think he fits perfectly with the identity of the offense. He's going to be that MVS role. He could be that Mecole Hardman role. Like, it fits really well, and it complements Rashee Rice, shout out SMU, to be just a really good combination. It's a good combination. So overall, I like this draft quite a bit. There's, of course, going to be stuff I'm nitpicking because that's what we do. we all have different opinions, and that is perfectly fine in this industry because that's what creates good football discourse. Regardless, thank you for watching. See you on the far side. Peace.